Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me today Heather Smith. She has a company called StoryFile, and I am fascinated by it because right now we're all talking about stories as the way to connect with our audiences. And you have this marvelous company that you've created around being able to do that. Tell us how you got started and why.
um, so StoryFile does something very unique that's never really been done before. We produce conversational video. So the way that we capture stories is we collect video of an individual, asking them a lot of questions, and then future generations are able to have those conversations and actually talk to that video content. Um, I got started because I was in the Holocaust education field. And one of the things that Holocaust survivors have been doing in the public for years and years and years is going into public spaces and telling their story. And then they usually answer a bunch of questions from the audience. And what we noticed was that was when you made the real connection with this story and you took ownership of it. So we said to each other, okay, these people are passing away, it's a fact of life, unfortunately. And what's going to happen to that story and that making that connection and um, being able to ask those questions and have those conversations. So we said, what would it look like if we replicated that for future generations to be able to have those conversations? So I came up with a concept and we did that project, and then somewhere along the line, a lot of people were coming to me, and one of their first questions was, "Can I do this myself?"
Mm.
And so then we said, "All right, what would it look like if we actually made this technology or this concept ubiquitous for everyone to be able to do?" So you would be able to capture your parents' story file, and then your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren would be able to talk to your parents about their lives, the choices they made, their the trajectory of their life, their career, their families, etc., and what they know about their past. So that would all be encapsulated in their story, and you'd get to make real connections and get to really know these individuals through these videos.
Okay, so let me understand how this works. You have somebody tell their story, and the interaction piece gets recorded through the question.
Mm.
And then when somebody watches that, as they have questions, they can then engage the person with whom they're watching that video. Is that correct?
So you as an individual would answer a bunch of questions on video, a bunch of questions that we have for you. And just be candid, be yourself, just answer them as if you were talking to somebody sitting right across from you. Um, and then anyone would be able to engage with that video content that you recorded through asking questions. So they can ask all kinds of questions. They don't have to ask the same question that was asked of you while you were recording. They can ask any question. We don't, um, we, the authenticity part, that's very important to us. So we don't edit anything that you said during that video answer. So nothing's edited, manipulated, or characterized. So whatever answer you gave is what is played, and that is your voice and your story for all time. And that's the pretty much the way it works.
Okay, so I want to be real specific. So
Mm,
when you interact, it
mm.
may not necessarily be with that person. It may be like somebody else that you're watching it with, but the actual person may have passed on. They may not be
Oh,
there,
right, right,
right?
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure there wasn't some
No,
catch there.
it's
Okay,
the actual person has to video themselves while they're alive.
right.
And then that's the video content that you're interacting with, regardless of, they could be in another country, they could be in another continent, it could be another time zone, or they could not be no longer with us as well.
So, who uses your technology the most? I think it's such a powerful tool, but
Thank
who
you.
uses it the most?
Well, conversational video, the whole concept behind conversational video has so many applications. We're using it to tell individuals' life stories, primarily first through StoryFile Life. And that's a platform that you can go on and you can tell your own story um, through that platform and use the tools that we've created for that platform. Then there are a lot of other applications that it would be really useful for in education, for example. Anytime you want to ask questions of someone or get to know someone without that individual having to be there, but you want to do it through video. You don't want to do it necessarily through, just audio or, type in a question and then get a chatbot response that's manipulated actually and created for you. It's not actually someone saying that. And so you need to, in our opinion, you need to see that video. You need to see their eyes. You need to listen to the way they're telling that story. And that tells you a lot about a person.
Mm.
So it was important to us to have the video element and be able to have that conversation. But not only that, be able to say to these individuals, you don't have to worry. Nothing will be manipulated. Your words won't be manipulated from us. Everything that you say from beginning to end, that will be your answer. That will be what these other individuals who are asking these conversations and interacting with you, that's what they will hear for all time.
So, tell me,
Mm.
you've listened to a lot of stories, you've dealt with a lot of people.
Mm.
What's been your most memorable experience?
I can't choose. That's like asking of which of your children are favorite. I can't. Um, I've had a lot of great moments, a lot of great stories. We interviewed, gosh, over 30, 35 Holocaust survivors. I've interviewed civil rights activists, and Ambassador Young. Andrew Young was probably one of the most amazing story files. I don't think there was a response that he gave that I didn't say everybody in the world should hear this.
Hmm.
Um, and we even just everyday people. There's some story files that we took that are just people like you and I, and they have amazing stories, all of them, each and every one of them, and they're so cute, and they all have different types of wisdom and different types of different views of the world. And it's so interesting to me to see how people view their worldviews and the way they see things and the choices that they've made. It's fascinating, and the lives that they had when they were growing up. It's unbelievable. So I can't choose one. No.
Okay, you can't choose one because there have been so many,
Yeah.
but it's the stories, right, that impact and influence.
Mhm.
Um, as you help people look at, I think one of the things people always worry about is, but is my story interesting?
Oh my gosh, I get that so much. I get that so much. Like, oh no, nobody's gonna want to hear my story. And da da da. I've nothing. And it does. You know, I think they look at it as telling their story and recording it and documenting it as a bit narcissistic, but it's not. It's anything but narcissistic. And you may not be interested, or you might say that you don't think you have an interesting story, but your story, let me tell you, your story matters. And it matters even if it matters to one person on this planet. It matters, and it needs to be told, because there's not, it may matter to one person, it may matter to five people, it may matter to 20, it may matter to millions. Everybody has something. If you've lived in this world and you've had a life, and you have experiences that you've gone through that you can reflect on, and the human being, the one thing that humans crave is knowing what's come before, and they want to hear stories, and they want to figure out life, and we all want to look for answers, basically.
Mm.
So by hearing them, all the stories that we can hear and listen to, you start accumulating and taking on these identities, and they help shape your own life. So they're all valuable. It You can't say that your story doesn't matter. Never.
It's hard to say that, or you can't say that your story doesn't matter, but it's so hard. It's that human leap of going,
Mm.
"Oh, really my story, right?" And then putting it together in a way that you want to leave that memory for your next generation or for the people that you care about.
Yeah.
So, what are there circumstances that people have or events that happen in a person's life that makes them more apt to want to have a story file or to tell a story about their life?
Um, there shouldn't be. There might be some things that happen during your lifetime, um, fortunately or unfortunately, that may be the impetus for you doing a story file. But look at it this way. For example, we've had several parents say, "This is amazing. I would love to do a story file with my child right before they go away to college. And then I
Oh,
would love to do another story file and almost the same questions, maybe a little bit different after they're done with college." Um, you live a life, right? So you can either do one of two things. You can capture that life along the way, and what were your reflections at a given time, or you can reflect on a life lived, which would mean that you would record it, hopefully, you know maybe mid 50s, mid 60s, mid 70s, somewhere in that range. But that doesn't preclude you from doing it again and again. For example, you can do it with children that are like, you can take it's almost a snapshot. So you save the same questions, and I'm going to do with my kids at 6, 8, 10, let's say 12 or 13, and then again at 15, 16, and then again when they go to college, and then when they come back. And then from that point on, you can do, different life cycle events. When you get married, when you have a family of your own, different career events, and you can do it even at 10-year interval. Like I can record the same story file every 10 years, and then I can see it all on my timeline, and I can see, oh, that'll be interesting. And my daughter is now what, 30, so she could talk to me at 30 and see what I was thinking, and how crazy everything was in my life. But it's and then, you can reflect years later also. It's very interesting, and it's an interesting concept from the aspect of archiving humanity, if you will. So for those of you who don't think that your story matters, think of it this way. If everyone did a story file, we would have a picture of the world and humanity in a radically different way for future generations. You can actually take history in real time and record it and have that archive. How's everyone feeling in the world at this moment? What are you valuing? What are you looking for? What do you want? What do you not like? Everything. What are you going through? Take the pandemic. It's the first time in history that you could do in mass and get everybody's sentiments, get everybody's feelings about something that the entire world has gone through. We've never been able to do that before. So you're actually being able to tell that history in real time
right.
and as it's happening, which is amazing.
That is amazing, isn't it? Tell me, you gave the example of your life at 30 and comparing it, sitting down with your daughter and comparing it to her story at
Mhm.
30. Have you and your daughter done that?
Well, I didn't have StoryFile when I was 30. So I went in and I unfortunately I didn't StoryFile would have been a lot easier to do than keeping a diary, I think. So I no, she's going to do a story about, so she's now 30. So she's going to do her story file at 30. And then her daughter or
I'll
son
do
will
one.
be able to interact with her at 30. Um, but yeah, I think overall she kind of knows my life at 30 and what I was going through. So yeah, we've talked a lot about it over the years.
You know, what's interesting is when you use it that way, it's another form of bonding, isn't it? Because as we grow and go through the developmental stages, we tend to reject
Yeah.
the previous generation just because we're trying to find our own identity.
Yeah.
When you can look at and compare that way close up,
Mhm.
you see the realness of it. And
Mhm.
maybe there isn't as much rejection. What do you think?
You mean in the future that there
Yeah.
might not be as much rejection? I think that's entirely possible because you see an individual at a given time that you're kind of rejecting, but and the old adage is it's such a cliche, like, oh, I was young too, and I remember when and I went through the same thing. Da, 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 da. That doesn't mean anything to that generation. What would mean something is if they were actually talking to that individual when they were living that and going through that, and hear how they're dealing with it, how they're explaining it, and listen to what they think about it at the time. Because when we look at something in hindsight, we look at it completely different than we do when we're actually going through it. So then that individual is able to really hear and really connect with that struggle, the same struggle that they're having. So you do realize that this is it's a flow. I mean, there's a cycle to life, and this is normal in a way. And you can hear those stories and listen to what other people have been going through at the same points in your life.
You know, it's interesting because we often talk about when you have stress in your life or had a very difficult experience. And the next generation will talk about that. Well, this shaped, my parents this way. Like
Right.
the depression certainly shaped people. So our choices of what we did or didn't do, how we raised people, how we disciplined was impacted by that scarcity, the fear of the future.
Mhm.
But if you see it right then, instead of having a negative perception of that, you see the struggle. Perhaps that really is a wonderful point for a healthy discussion on
Mhm.
difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it, it, your point is a very interesting one. If I were able to talk to my parents, but the person that was going through at the point of time that they were going through what they were going through, I would have a lot more empathy for what
Right.
they were going through, and that would change my um, the way I look at that whole experience, and so I wouldn't be as fearful of it, or you would change it would change your attitude towards that, and thereby changing your attitude, it would change the way you make decisions and the effect that it's had on you living with that. Um, there isn't, when we do these interviews, there truly, I don't think in all the interviews that we've done where we've had a family member as watching, or there as a companion, there hasn't been one family member that has not heard something that they didn't know,
Oh,
or
interesting.
that they were surprised to hear, um, or grateful to hear even. It is, you talk about the discovery and you talk about that's a great bonding experience. This is an amazing thing to do, especially for, I would emphasize, push grandchildren, or I would encourage grandchildren to interview their grandparents at whatever age they are. And it's because you, when you're going through a lot of these questions that you'll choose to ask your grandparents, you wouldn't normally ask these questions in everyday conversation or, everyday life. You have a list of questions that really probe a person's life and create this vision of their lives that they're telling you their whole life story from beginning to end. But those aren't conversations that you have every day. Those aren't stories you hear a lot. So it's a chance for you to really get into their lives deeper and ask those questions before it's too late. How many people have lost loved ones already and they've said, "Oh, but I never asked that
Mhm.
person that question. We never had that conversation." So there's, there are always questions, and there are questions that you would have at the stage in life that you're in that your daughter might not have at the stage of life, because you just don't know what to ask until you've gone through X. So you you need to be able to talk to that individual at different points in your life based on what you're dealing with as well. So it's very interesting. All of it, very interesting process.
It's fun. And, I think it's so important for that connection. And I think, especially right now where people are trying to understand
Mm,
what's happening, where do we go next? You really
yeah.
want to learn from people who have had life experiences. We don't need to repeat everything,
Right.
right? We can learn
Hopefully,
sometimes.
hopefully you can learn. It would save everyone a lot of aggravation and time and money. So if you can learn from other people.
It'd be so true. So our time is almost up, Heather. What have we missed?
Oh gosh.
What have we not talked about that you would like the audience to know about?
Um, I think, well, StoryFile Life is now available, and we just want to encourage everyone to grab a loved one, sit down, have these conversations, record them, answering all of these questions, and enjoy the moment, enjoy the stories, and let that influence your life in some way.
So let me ask you a question relative to that. Do you
Mm,
have videographers that come in and
do it for you.
capture this, or do you do this on your platform and then download that? How does that work mechanically?
Yeah. So the platform is a tool that you do it all on your own if you want to. Then the next step above that would be if you had a grandchild and they wanted to record you, they might connect like a webcam to their computer, or an external microphone, or some other way, and they might set up a different way to capture you.
Mhm.
They might put a light ring, little setup. And then there are professional video companies that will come in and also use the platform, but set up a little bit more of a professional shot, or professional filming of you. And then the top level would be to record your story in our studio and have us do a custom script for you. So we research your life, we put together a custom storyline for your interview. Our professional interviewers do the interview with you. Um, I mean, it's a production. So there's that option as well for individuals. It goes from the whole gamut. Yeah.
And, and can you work with people anywhere in the US, or where are you located?
Oh. Well, anyone can do it online on the platform. We have one studio in Los Angeles, in West Hollywood, that anyone's more than welcome to come to. We do have studio partners around the country that are trained and able to do this as well. And then we have studio affiliates that will be using the StoryFile Life platform online, like the one that I talked about with the webcam, or the different external camera that come in and use StoryFile Life to do the recording, but it's a little bit more professional than you doing it on your own.
Got it. Absolutely wonderful. And we will have information about your website,
Thank you.
storyfile.com, on the show notes so people can
Great.
get in contact with you.
Yeah.
And through that, they can get to the story file and take a look at how they want to do and capture their
Yeah,
story.
it's storyfile.com/life.
Okay, /life.
Yeah. Mhm.
Very, very nice. Love the idea.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we want to encourage everybody to tell their story. I mean, think about it. In a world, 10, 15 years from now, if everybody had a story file, then we could learn about anybody. I could talk to you. I could ask you questions about your life. Anybody could talk to anybody. It'd be really cool.
It could be cool.
Yeah, it'd be amazing.
Thank you so much, Heather, for being with us on
Thank
Building
you.
My Legacy podcast today. And
Thank
for
you.
those of you who are listening, thank you very much. And remember to visit our website at buildtomorrow.com. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell button above. Leave comments. We'd love to hear what you think. And visit our other social media links as well. Thanks much.